But thank you all for coming out on what's a beautiful Friday night. I don't want to rub that in too much, or you might walk out and leave. When I left Stowe this morning, it was spitting rain and sleet. And what a treat to come down to Manchester. I appreciate being here. So our talk tonight is going to be about climate policy in Vermont and what they've been doing in the legislature, and not just in the legislature, but also in the Climate Council, which is a formation of the Global Warming Solutions Act, and what all this means for Vermont and what it means for you. That's the title of the first slide here. What exactly are we getting at with the Global Warming Solutions Act? Somebody asked me a question because they saw this slide up there, a Mack truck. Well, the legislation that's being passed, I would say, is going to turn us all into roadkill in the not too distant future, economic roadkill. It is going to be a lot of taxes. It's going to mean a lot of fees. It's going to mean a lot of regulatory requirements being put on you. And it's going to mean a lot of mandates that are going to, in many ways, crush and choke our economy. Now, the Mack truck image there is not me being hyperbolic, and it's not even my term. It came from a quote by June Tierney, who is the commissioner of the Department of Public Service, and she also serves as a member of the Climate Council. And as she was getting briefed on what this thing is actually going to do in terms of policy, how it's going to affect people, she said this. She said, "I don't think Vermonters understand the Mack truck that is coming at them. They don't understand how this thing is going to impact their lives and what it's going to cost," which is a pretty dramatic statement when you think, here they're passing a policy that is designed to basically change the way we live our lives. It's the way we heat our homes, the way we drive, where we can build houses, how those houses have to be built, what kind of car we're going to be able to drive. It fundamentally changed our lifestyles, and they don't understand what it does and what it costs. It's pretty dramatic, and it's something that I hope by the end of this presentation, you at least will have some idea of what those two things mean. So the Global Warming Solutions Act, what exactly is this? They passed this a little over a year ago, I guess almost 2 years ago now, and it requires, in a nutshell, Vermont to lower our greenhouse gas emissions 26% below 2005 levels by 2025, a date that is rapidly approaching, 40% below 1990 levels by 2030, and 80% below 1990 levels by 2050. All sounds great, doesn't it? I mean, who doesn't like this? This is sort of like the book, don't judge the book by its cover. This is sort of the cover. And what they tell, who doesn't want to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions? Who doesn't want to lower our carbon output? We want to have a green footprint in Vermont. We want to save the planet. Everybody wants these things. It's a very easy thing to sell. But what they don't really get into with this is an explanation of what it will actually take to meet these goals. And the analogy that I kind of use is like, do you want a pony? You ask a kid, hey, do you want a pony? Absolutely, I want a pony. Who doesn't want a pony? Every kid wants a pony. Until you figure out how you're going to house the pony, how you're going to feed the pony, how you're going to clean up after the pony, how you're going to keep the medical care of the pony, how you're going to exercise the pony. And all of a sudden, when that reality sets in, nobody wants a pony. Absolutely nobody wants a pony, except very few people. Very few very wealthy people, and there's a good connection to the analogy with that there. So the Global Warming Solutions Act was passed. Just a little bit of housekeeping here. The Global Warming Solutions Act created the Climate Council, which is a 23-member council of unelected people. They're appointed, some from the governor's office. I forget how many from the governor. I think it's 9 from the governor's office, the rest appointed by the legislators, but they are unelected. But they're supposed to come up with a plan that will then go to the Agency of Natural Resources to execute. And the way this is shaking out is the Public Utilities Commission, the PUC, another unelected body, is going to ultimately be charged with putting together this thing called the Clean Heat Standard, which I'll talk about lately. So there's all these weird levels of bureaucracy involved in this. Now let's look at this chart. Now all the charts that I'm going to show you in my presentation tonight come out of a report put together by a group called CADMIS, which was hired by the Climate Council in order to do all of the background research for how the plan's going to work. So this isn't me making stuff up. This is what the actual information that they are using to make the decisions on what our climate policy should be moving forward. And these bars here, I think I'm going to need my glasses for this one, show all the different areas, all the different colors on the bars show all the different areas of our economy that generate greenhouse gas emissions. The big ones, the yellow one there in the middle and that sort of dark red one below it, are residential and transportation, respectively, red being transportation. And the top one at the top there, that beige one, is agriculture. And those are the ones I'm going to be focusing on most in my presentation today. And you see 2018, where we were when the law was passed, and then, or 2020, and where we're coming up 2025. All these shrinking bars are what's required to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions over the life until we get to 2050. So when you see that red bar go from up there down there, that is a reduction in how you're able to use gasoline and diesel to drive your car, get from place to place. That yellow bar, as it decreases from there to almost nothing, is your inability in the future to use fossil fuels in your home, to keep it warm, to heat up your hot water for your shower, to cook your food. That represents radical changes in how you are allowed to live your life under this law. So how are we going to get there? 3 key points I want you to take away from what I'm going to explain through the rest of the presentation about this is our legislature, in passing the Global Warming Solutions Act, and how we get to do all of this in this chart. They do not know how it works. They do not know what it will do in terms of impact, in terms of cost, and they don't know what it will cost. And I should add a 4th bullet point here: they don't care. They do not care. They have zero curiosity about the details of how this is actually going to work and how it's going to impact you. Now, the folks on the Climate Council, they get briefed on all this stuff. They know the details, but the legislators, the people who vote for this, don't know, and they're totally incurious about it because, in my humble opinion, they want to keep a level of plausible deniability when this stuff comes home to roost so they can go to the voters. I had no idea. Now, here's a little video that illustrates that, and I hope that you're going to be able to hear this. I'm not sure that you can, but I put the video in, and this is actually just from the other day. This is the Senate Natural Resource and Energy Committee. They've been talking about this clean heat standard, which is a major portion of how we get to lower the greenhouse gas emissions of your home. They have been taking testimony on this for 2 or 3 weeks. It has already passed the House, 96-44, I believe what it was. They're about to vote on this. They're an hour or 2 away from voting on this. And let's see if you can hear what they have to say. Where's my cursor? I can't see the cursor.
They in theory, understand what we are unable to explain. If they will design the thing that will work, but we can't explain what we're asking them to design.
You can't hear it? Okay. Well, I can tell you what they said. It's a very short quote from Senator Mark McDonald, and the key to it is, they, the Public Utilities Commission, in theory understand what we, the senators, are not able to explain. We are asking them to design the thing that will work, but we can't explain what we are asking them to design. That is the level of responsibility your legislators are bringing to this transformational piece of law. It's inexcusable. Oops, that's not what I want. I want to go to the next thing. Another aspect that is kind of interesting about the Global Warming Solutions Act is that if we fail to do that, if we fail to do everything on that chart, if we fail to meet those goals or do what this plan ultimately says to do, The law says that any person, highlighted there, any person may commence a legal action based upon the failure of the Secretary of Natural Resources to adopt or update the rules pursuant to the deadlines. So if they don't follow what is ordered by the non-elected body of the PUC or of the Agency of Natural Resources or the Climate Council, then any person can sue the state. Or any person may commence an action by alleging that the rules adopted by the Secretary pursuant to Section 593 of this chapter have failed to achieve the greenhouse gas emissions reductions requirements. So even if they do everything that the plan tells them to do and it doesn't work, we can be sued. So I've got Greta Thunberg up there because theoretically she could get in her catamaran, sail across the Atlantic Ocean, up the Hudson River, into Lake Champlain, beach her boat in Burlington, lay a how dare you on us, and sue us for not doing this. And we, the taxpayers, would be liable for her legal expenses in doing so. Could be liable. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And what's really frightening is you'll get to know over the rest of the presentation is that we can't actually do what they're asking us to do. It is logistically, financially, culturally impossible. Transportation, how we drive. Obviously, that's the big bugaboo out there for greenhouse gas emissions is what comes out of the tailpipes of our cars. So what the Climate Council plan discusses in the Cadmus report is how do we get there? Okay, well, if we're going to reduce our transportation emissions by those numbers in that chart, you saw that red bar squeeze way down, we have to put 27,000 electric vehicles on the road by 2025 and 126,000 electric vehicles on the road by 2030. I want to put this in perspective. We have less than 5,000 electric vehicles on the road in Vermont today. Less than 5,000. I think the Prius, the first hybrid electric, came out in year 2000, maybe 2001, something like that. So for over 2 decades, we've had this technology, and we've gone from 0 to about 5,000 in 20 plus years, and they want us to go from 5,000 to 27,000 in essentially 3 years. Now, here's some other wrinkles in that number. Can I take questions at the end? Thanks, because I just feel like there's a lot of material to get through, and I want to make sure we have time to get through it all and do the question. So you think about that. Beyond the fact that you can't get cars. They're having trouble manufacturing cars right now due to the supply chain issues. These cars are very expensive compared to regular cars. And they want not only these 27,000 and 126,000 cars on the road by these dates, but they also have there's a social justice and equity lens through which all this has to be looked at. So low-income people have to be getting into these cars at a similar, same rate as higher income people. So they have to be subsidized. This is going to cost tens, hundreds of millions of dollars to achieve this goal. And it can't be done. Even if we did put those 27,000 cars on 126 by 2030, the electricity in the state doesn't exist to charge them. We don't generate enough electricity to charge them. If we did generate that electricity, our grid system isn't prepared to transmit it to everybody's house where they can charge their car in their garage. And if we did have that, 75% of the houses in the state don't have the kind of electrical, the box, the 200 amp box necessary for that technology. So the infrastructure is just not there to do this. And the money's not there to do this. They do not have a revenue stream to subsidize this many cars for people to do. So it's not going to happen. One of the things I talked about regulatory environment is they're going to ban the sale of internal combustion engine vehicles when there's no real alternative for most people to buy. I mean, one of the things they say is, we're going to put the lower income people into used electric vehicles. Well, as I just said, there's 5,000 electric vehicles on the road. So if every single person driving an electric vehicle in Vermont today said, I'm going to get a new one and put this on the market as a used car, there's still only 5,000 used electric vehicles that you can choose from. They want light trucks. The first light truck is coming off the line. I think it's Ford or General Motors. It's called a Lightning, I think. And it costs $100,000. Who's going to buy that? Probably not your young 30-something electrician or plumber or carpenter who needs a truck to do his or her work. That kind of money just doesn't come. So here's some of the humor surrounding this. I mean, if humor can be called, but yes, they're going to ban internal combustion engine cars by 2035. We're tied in with California on that. Governor Gavin Newsom in California said that California is going to ban sale of new internal combustion engine vehicles by 2035. Vermont and I think 14 other states are in this compact with California that we're sort of tied to them. So their governor has decided that we're going to ban these cars we're locked in to this program unless somebody makes a decision to get us out. So you can't buy the internal combustion engine cars. A lot of people won't be able to afford the alternative. It's really not a fair program here. But here's some of the humor of this. There's a thing called the Transportation Climate Initiative that our Climate Council was thinking was going to sort of take care of this aspect of our climate policy. It was an interstate compact. I think it was 12 states and Washington, D.C., so 13 entities. Were all negotiating what essentially was a carbon tax on gasoline and diesel fuel that would have been sort of hidden in a credits scheme that all the states, and if you wanted to sell gasoline and diesel, you had to buy these credits. The cost of the credits would then go into this fund. The fund would run by a Wall Street firm, and they would then give the money back to the states. So it was a way of passing a tax without having to put your name, if you're a legislator, onto a tax increase. My friend John McClowery and I, who used to work with at the Ethan Allen Institute, we're watching TCI, and it was apparent to us, and we warned the council, this thing's not going anywhere. When they came out with their memorandum of understanding, only 3 of the states initially said that we're interested in participating in it. It was Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. When Connecticut and Rhode Island brought this to their the governors of Connecticut and Rhode Island brought it to their legislatures, which are very left-leaning. They're almost as bad as Vermont. They said, absolutely not. We're not doing this. It's a gas tax. And, Ned Lamont, the Connecticut governor, after this, the whole thing imploded. He said, look, I couldn't get that through TCI when gas prices were at a historic low, so I think the legislature's been pretty clear that it's going to be a pretty tough rock to push when gas prices are so high. And this was months ago, but when gas prices had come up a little bit from where they were, and now they're significantly higher than when it happened. So TCI implodes. The week before they come out, the Climate Council comes out with their plan. And they're just, oh my God, what are we going to do? Well, if they'd listened to John and me, they would have had a plan B, but they didn't. So really, right now, again, getting back to the Greta Thunberg beaching her catamaran in Burlington and suing us, our climate policy doesn't have a plan for transportation at this point, which is, on one hand, a good thing, because the plan, whenever it comes out, is not going to be pleasant. But there's no revenue. They were counting on this was going to be a $20 to $30 million a year tax. They were going to use that money to pay for some of these programs. Now they have no revenue coming in on that. So the transportation aspect of this is kind of shot. I want to talk very briefly about agriculture. The agriculture part of the Climate Action Plan calls for, just that top line there, enteric fermentation to decline by 20% by 2025 and 39% by 2030. Enteric fermentation is the scientific term for bovine flatulation, which is the polite term for cow farts. That the legislature thinks that it can, through the magic of signing a law, get our cows to stop digesting food the way they digest food by 40% over any period of time is kind of laughable. And it certainly opens the door for countless jokes. But it ceases to be funny when you realize that the seriousness of it is that the only way that you can get cows to do what they do 40% less is to eliminate the cows. This is a death sentence to our dairy industry. So when you're driving along, see those cows, the Woody Jackson video, the visuals that you always get, so much of the Vermont character has a bullseye on it with this chart. The clean heat standard. Now I'm going to spend the bulk of my presentation talking about the clean heat standard because they're going to be voting on this in the Senate next week. There's still hope. What is the clean heat standard? This is, the Transportation Climate Initiative was that red bar in the graph. The clean heat standard is your house. This is how you heat your home or your business, airspace, water space, heating, cooking food, home heating fuel, gas, propane, natural gas, home heating oil, kerosene, and wood, basically, is what they're targeting with the clean heat standard. And it's very similar to Transportation Climate Initiative, except this is a state level thing. And basically what they want to do is they want to create these credits. And what you have to do if you want to sell a propane to you, for example, or home heating fuel, is your dealer will have to go and buy credits in order to be able to sell to you. The cost of that credit is going to be passed along to you in the form of your bill. And whoever has the credit can then sell it for cash. This is where it just gets kind of bizarre. They've compared this to the regional greenhouse gas emission. You folks in the audience know what the regional greenhouse gas emission is. Initiative is. It's a group of states. I forget how many are in there, like 10 states or something like that. Force electricity generation producers who to buy credits if they're producing greenhouse gases. If you're burning coal, if you're burning natural gas, in order to generate electricity, you have to buy these credits to compensate for your greenhouse gas emissions. And then the states divvy up the money from selling the credits, and they get to spend it on whatever they want. It's a very simple idea at the way it's done there, because you have this Wall Street entity, generates generates the credits. They just mint them. They say, okay, we're going to have 50,000 credits this year, and then they auction them quarterly to a small group of utilities that is very sophisticated businesses. So we're talking things like Green Mountain Power, Gas Metro. So big, sophisticated companies. This clean heat standard is going to go after fuel dealers in Vermont, the guys in the trucks who come and fill up your heating tank, your oil. A lot of these are guys people with one truck and a cell phone. That's their business. Those are the folks that they're going after with this. They didn't understand that when they passed the plan. When it got into the legislature, somebody informed them that, oh, by the way, what they wanted to do is they wanted to go after just the wholesalers. What they found out is that 80% of the wholesalers who sell fuel to Vermont aren't in Vermont. They're in Canada, they're in New York, they're in other states, and our dealers, or local dealers, cross state lines, fill up their trucks, come back into Vermont. Vermont cannot force Canadian wholesalers or New York-based wholesalers to buy these things. So it devolves onto the local dealers, which is just a mess, because there's like 130 of these very small businesses that are volatile in whether they stay in business or not. They're being sold, they're being bought and sold. So this becomes extremely complicated. The other aspect of this is crazy, is that the people, you don't just mint these. The Public Utilities Commission isn't going to say, we need 50,000 credits and here they are, come buy them. They want everybody who installs a heat pump or weatherizes a home to, organically is not the right word, but they're going to create these credits through these actions that they take. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Because at its heart, again, this is a carbon tax on your home heating fuels, if they're fossil fuel based. It's a carbon tax. And I have another video, but unfortunately we can't hear it, where the senators in the Natural Resources and Energy Committee admit it. They say, this is a carbon tax, isn't it? That's what we're doing. And the chairman of the committee, Chris Bray, says, yes, in essence, that's exactly what it is. And they have been spending an inordinate amount of time over the past year and a half saying this isn't a carbon tax, we're not doing a carbon tax, we're not passing a carbon tax, because nobody wants a carbon tax. So they're gussying it up in all this language that, unfortunately, in my opinion, is designed to mislead the public as to what it is they're doing. But I thank them for saying the quiet part out loud. I wish I could play it for you out loud. Oh, there we go. So how does it work? I've kind of jumped the gun here and started to already explain how some of this craziness works, where you've got all these people, and mostly, here's what this is designed to do, is they want groups like Efficiency Vermont, which is a politically favored organization, to be able to get money from the fossil fuel dealers, the tax. They want to give that money to entities like Efficiency Vermont to go out and install heat pumps or weatherize a home at taxpayer expense. But they don't want to do that, because then they could be accused of passing a carbon tax, which they admitted that they're going to do. So they've created this thing where you're going to have, every time Efficiency Vermont, or you as a homeowner, go out and install a heat pump or buy some insulation and weatherize your attic, you can then apply to the PUC for a credit. Somebody's going to have to come down and verify that you did this action, assign a credit level to that action, then put that into a banking system. I mean, this is serious. This isn't something you could just do. I mean, this is like Wall Street level security. It is a financial instrument. This credit is a financial instrument. They're going to have to verify that it's there, and then they're going to have to track it over its life. Because let's say that your weatherization project is going to save so much greenhouse gas emissions over a 20-year period, that credit will last for 20 years. And then it has to be retired. So somebody has to be monitoring that in a very serious way. And in order to do that, you're going to have a bureaucracy that's huge. They're talking about, I'll get to the slide in a minute, of I think it's a little less than 460,000 of these actions that's going to need to take place over the next 7 years. This is the line for the building sector of emissions, similar to the other one, but this is just the housing, where you've got the yellow is residential, and the commercial is, red is commercial, and the blue is industrial. This is for heating. This is for the thermal sector. You look at where we are now, how much we're using, and that's where we want to get to by 2050. Just think about how radical that is in terms of the change that's going to have to take place in terms of people not heating their homes with fossil fuels anymore. That's what most people do. Most people in the state heat their home. I think it's well over 80% heat with either propane or natural gas or kerosene, something like that. So this is a lot of change. You think about that. Everybody has to go into get somebody to come to their house to replace their hot water heater. Get somebody to come into their house to replace their home heating system. That's a lot of work, and that work costs a lot of money. And again, they don't have any revenue stream designed to do this, except for what's coming through in these credits. So the amount of money that these credits needs to generate is going to be very, very high. They don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I can't tell you because nobody has really done the analysis on how much it would cost to do all of this. But as you can see, it's a very radical transformation for how we live our lives and heat our homes. These are the numbers. This is what they say they want done. 69,000, but this by 3 years from now, 69,000 homes weatherized. I think the average cost that Efficiency Vermont said for one of those homes is about $10,000 of taxpayer money subsidizing those actions. 96,000 heat pumps installed. Heat pump water heaters installed, 63,000. Advanced wood heat, the wood pellet stuff, almost 13,000. Switching homes to biofuels, 12,000 homes to biofuels, and then almost double that number again, more than double that number, again by 2030. That's a huge amount of money. As for I really wish I could play this video for you next, and here you have it, because they want us to have these cold climate heat pumps. That's the number one thing. How are you going to heat your home if you can't heat it with propane or oil? Go for a cold climate heat pump. Well, I have this guy who installs cold climate heat pumps, came in to testify. I'll read what he says. Cold climate heat pumps become very inefficient, very costly to operate, and largely ineffective as you approach 0 degrees. In some cases, that could be +5, +10, but I will tell you recently, in the last few weeks, he gave this testimony in February, I have spent an enormous amount of time on the phone with customers who made the investment to convert a large percentage of their heating needs to cold climate heat pumps, and they were furious. They don't work. So they're telling us to abandon a technology that over 80% of us have to stay warm in winter, which is kind of key in a state that gets as cold as Vermont does in February. And their recommendations to replace it with a technology that's not yet ready for prime time. And we don't know if it will be by the time all these mandates kick in. And by the way, it's very expensive to do. It was funny. Part of the other testimony that this guy gave was that most people are installing the heat pumps are using it to air condition their homes in the summer because they can cool as well as heat. But they cool well in the summer. They don't heat so well in the winter. So these people's electric bills are actually going through the roof because they're now using electricity in the summer, whereas they used to use nothing. So again, makes totally no sense. So how are they going to get you to do this? Again, how are they going to get you to do this? Phase out fossil fuel for cooking and heating. They want to get you to do all of these things to your home. They want you to be weatherized. They want you to get rid of your fossil fuel burning furnace system, and if you have a gas stove, they want you to get rid of your gas stove. And some of you may be shaking your heads, well, to heck with them. I'm not doing that, and they can't make me. Well, how are they going to make you do it? Richard Cowart, who was on the Vermont Climate Council, addressed this problem. He said a different option is a time of sale requirement. That is, the standard kicks in as units are changing hands, which basically means if by the time they create their mandate, you have not done what they told you to do, well, they're not going to get you now, but when you go to sell your house, you can't until somebody pays to have this done. Your house will be effectively condemned. Heavy hand of government, little bit. That's the kind of world this legislature is creating for us to live in. It's not particularly pleasant. Power infrastructure. This chart here shows baseline. If we don't do all of this stuff, the red line at the bottom is what our electricity growth is going to look like, or estimated to look like, if we don't do any of this. The yellow line is our electricity growth, or electricity we're going to need to power all this stuff. If everybody's charging their cars, heating their homes with heat pumps and whatnot, we're going to need more than twice the amount of electricity we have now. As I said before, where are we going to get that electricity from? We're going to put wind towers, we're going to do solar. That's what they want. That's what they want, all that wind and solar. But to this last point here, we don't have the workforce to do any of this. Getting back to the point about, this whole thing is impossible. We can get sued if we don't do this. We can't do it. This is Jared Duvall. This guy is from the Energy Action Network, and he is a member of the Climate Council. He's one of the most outspoken voices in favor of this plan. And he says, Vermont currently has about 700 weatherization workers. We have good reason to anticipate that we will likely need somewhere in the range of 5,000 weatherization workers by sometime around the middle of this decade, which is not very far away. That's 4,300 workers short, we're just 14% of where we need to be in terms of workforce. Anybody seen the news about how hard it is to get people to come work here? In fact, it's kind of funny. I was watching the testimony from the Public Utilities Commission. The Public Utilities Commission, as I mentioned, is the unelected body that they're going to charge with, coming up with the plan that makes the plan work. And they were asking for an extension of the amount of time because they're hiring 3 workers at the PUC to come in as experts and do this work. One of the senators said, why do you need more time to do this? He said, well, have you seen the labor market? We're not sure we can find 3 people to do this work, but we're going to find 4,300 over the next 3 years to come in and do all the manual labor it takes just to do the weatherization component of this program. That doesn't include installing the heat pumps. That doesn't include hooking up all of the electric vehicle charging stations that you're going to need throughout the state. It doesn't include all of the electrical upgrades in people's homes that it's going to be needed to be done in order to do this. It's just pie in the sky. It's not grounded in reality at all. Yet, I bring it up again, Greta Thunberg can sail her catamaran up to Burlington and sue us if we don't do this thing that is impossible to do. Now, I want to talk a little bit, sort of my last point before I get to a conclusion, then we'll open it up for question, is a blank check or a check back, because that's sort of the big veto question right now. Governor Scott has come out and said he's not going to sign this bill unless there's a check back provision. And what the check back is what they want to do. And if they pass this, if this passes the House, and it has passed the House, if it passes the Senate and it gets reconciled with the House and becomes law, what they want to do is they are giving the green light to this plan, not knowing how much it costs, not knowing how it's going to work, not knowing where the workforce is going to come from, not knowing if any of the logistics even fall in place, but they're saying just do it. You PUC, figure it out and do it. And we'll pay for it. Whatever you come up with, because there's no check back. And what the check back is, the Republican Saliaki, who's a representative from Middletown Springs, is on the Energy Committee in the House. And when this came up, she demanded that. She said to her committee, I want to put the thing that says the check that once the PUC comes up with their plan, it comes back to the legislature, and the legislature has to say, okay, now we know what it costs, now we know what it's going to take to do, and we have to vote up or down on this. And they go, oh, no. We're not doing that. The Democratic majority, the progressives, we're not doing that. We're just going to say, go for it. You do it. And if there's a problem, then, we always have the ability to come forward and say, we think you need to adjust here or adjust there. Somebody pointed out in that committee, I think it was my representative, Heidi Sherman, who's a Republican from Stowe, said, yeah, just sort of like with Act 46, the school district consolidation bill, when we passed that, we could come back, and if they're not doing what we said the legislative intent was, we can correct it. How'd that go? That's exactly what they're trying to do here. They have no intention of correcting this. They know exactly what they want to do. They want to put these things in place. They want to spend the money. If we don't get there, they're happy to have Greta Thunberg sue us. They just want to get it done, and they don't want to have any accountability for it. They do not want to be accountable. They don't want to sign, because they know if the voters see that they have signed off on this, knowing what was in it, they can't hide. So that's the fight now, and that's the one I was happy to see speaking here in Bennington County, that the bill came before the Appropriations Committee to discuss, because they need to appropriate $1.2 million to come up with the plan to make the plan work. There was some pushback by some of the senators, including Senator Dick Sears from Bennington County, that we need to have a check back. That's irresponsible not to have that check back. I don't think there's going to be a majority. I think it's going to pass, but hopefully there is enough Democrats will join the Republicans in sustaining a veto that this can be stopped. So just in conclusion, I just want to point out that this is entirely unaffordable for government and citizens. I mean, the intentions may be good. A lot of people, I know, we do. I think most people are environmentally conscious. We do want to lower our greenhouse gas emissions. We do want to recognize that there's pollution that takes place, and we want to deal with it. But this is a totally unrealistic thing that they're asking us to do. It is logistically impossible. We do not have the workforce to do it. We don't have the tax base to do it. It's economically disastrous. As Commissioner Tierney pointed out, it's a Mack truck coming at us. It drives up the cost of living at a time of record inflation. I mean, this is going to make heating your home more expensive than it already is. It's going to make driving your car more expensive than it already is. It's anti-small business. I talked about the small fuel dealers. They had one fuel dealer come in to testify. Said, if you do this, I'm out of business on day one. What happens to their customers if they're out of business? This guy had a business that was 6,000. He had 1,600 households and 6 employees. 6 employees servicing 1,600 households. He's out of business on day one. What happens to those 1,600 households? How are they going to get their fuel? Have to find somebody else. Who's going to get into this business? If it's clearly got a bullseye on it from the legislature that it's not going to exist in 10 years. It's going to exacerbate the affordable housing crisis that we have, because who is going to be incentivized to build housing if it's going to cost this much? If you have to renovate the housing that's out there or build housing to codes that are net zero, it's going to put a crimp on people's ability to build. And if they're telling you can't build outside of urban centers, which is one of the things they are, I didn't really touch on that in this, it decreases the amount of places where you can build, and it limits them to the most expensive where you can. So it exacerbates the housing crisis. And it's legislatively irresponsible. I wish I could have shown you that video quote, because they don't understand the law that they're passing. They admit they don't understand it. And this deflects resources from other pressing problems. I mean, the state has real problems. We have a pension crisis that we're trying to deal with. The aftermath from COVID has wreaked havoc on our young children and what they've been dealing with in schools. We have a child care crisis that we need to deal with. We have an opioid crisis that we need to deal with. We have a labor force crisis that we need to deal with. And this is going to make it worse because, you can't get anybody to, if housing's expensive and the regulatory reasons to come here are difficult, why would you want to come here to try and work? They're going to make it harder and more expensive, particularly for middle-income people to work. And the total electrification of the state, which is what their goal is, they want basically everything to be electric. The way you drive, the way you heat your home, the way you cook your food, all has to be electric by 2050. Well, what the hell happens in February when you get an ice storm that knocks out the electricity? You're freezing to death, you can't feed yourself, and you can't drive to any place where you can do these things. It's dumb. And it's not safe. And the last point I will make is that what's the impact on our future climate trends that this is supposed to do? Global warming solutions. Those are the middle 3 words of the Global Warming Solutions Act. Global warming solutions. It's not a solution for global warming. Even its adherents will admit that it doesn't do anything to combat global warming, because Vermont is such a small state. We had Scott Campbell, who's a representative from St. Johnsbury, put in a huge adherent of this. Says, yeah, it's not going to do anything. He wrote an op-ed, or in response to somebody, a constituent's question, no, it's not going to do anything. There was an op-ed recently by one of the progressives from Brattleboro saying, yeah, we need to do this, recognizing the fact that it's not going to do anything to solve the problem. I mean, it drives me crazy because, groups like Vermont Public Interest Research Group, they're out there saying, look at what's happening. We're having less snow. It's affecting the maple sugar industry. We're having floods like, Tropical Storm Irene, all this stuff. We've got to do something. Well, this doesn't do anything to affect the snowfall. If the snowfall is going away, it's going away, not because of this. All of those things, it may be true. It may be absolutely true, but this doesn't solve the problem. So we as a state need to ask ourselves, as voters, as taxpayers, is it worth all of the economic disruption, the job losses, the money that we're going to have to spend to turn our lives upside down and suffer through the Mack truck running over us when it will have no appreciable effect on the thing it's supposed to do? And with that, I will open up to questions. Thank you for your time.